We are not just flesh and bone. We have stardust in our veins. A reminder that we carry within us the planets that align in our hearts. May we show up for one another, show up for ourselves in the process, and remember we are divinity incarnate. May we learn to lean into that pure and true source in each other more willingly, and with a love that will not abandon us and will sustain us for the many hard days that have passed and those yet to come.
Please, that reading was by Jamie Yandley. Please rise and body your spirit for our opening hymn.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For always there's serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life. For sorrow endless beat, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours of past, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Good morning. And a good Sunday after the week after Easter to us all. Who here is ready for 90-degree weather and humidity today? Ooh, some people are raising their hands. That would not be me. That would not be me. Again, good morning. My name is Reverend Chris Long. I have the good fortune of being the minister of congregational life. If you are visiting us for the first time, a good morning and thank you for coming to be with us. Please do come again and again and again and again to see if this may become your sacred community of hope. Also, you are invited to join members and friends of the congregation in our reception area for refreshments and coffee after the service. To those joining us online, a good morning to you. I bet you it's not 90 degrees where you are today. Is there anywhere else in the country that might experience 90-degree weather in April? Texas and Florida. At least I digress. Okay, good morning to you all. Please say hello into the chat to let us know where you're coming from. This morning, say this morning. This morning we have the honor of having another of our Preacher Pack members share in leading of our worship today, and that today is Heather Yonke. Let's give it up for Heather. Today's announcements. From middle hour from 10:15 to 11:15, Faith in Practice we will be having in room 5. And what's the name of that group that's been called since the election? Psst. See, I didn't have to say it. I was preaching it when it first happened, but that's an acronym for Parenting in Tumultuous Times, and that's in room 5. We are off for faith exploration today. And then in room 7, say room 7, Social Justice Subteam on voting is meeting. We're still got to meet. There's still elections. There's an election when? This coming Saturday, right? And I'll talk about this in a little bit. And then in our pre-K is in room 2, grades 1 through 5 in room 3, and our youth are in room 1. Announcements for Sunday, May 4th. Our child dedication service will be happening next weekend. And if you'd like your child to be dedicated, please do see Kathy so we can ensure that we are doing that service and including people who would like to have their children dedicated. Also next Sunday at 1 p.m., Kathy and Megan Sheehan Dean will be leading a workshop on IEP for parents. IEP is it individualized education plans? So that's going to be next Sunday as well at 1 p.m. after the services. Back to, yes. And next Sunday is the blood drive every quarter. Woo woo. Our Lady of the Lake will be parking their bus here, and they're always fresh make goodies, always, always, always. So please do plan to give if you can. Tomorrow and again on Wednesday, our partners at Lori, Wednesday's not Lori, but tomorrow is Lori, our Louisiana Organization for Refugees and Immigrants, have invited us, for those who are free, to shut it down, show up, and speak out, as there are 3 anti-immigration bills scheduled for debate and voting. And they're asking us to join them at the Capitol tomorrow starting at 9:30, and then they'll have 2 other throughout the thing, and they're asking us to show up at the House Chamber Room HCR3. On Wednesday, I just learned about this last night. Wednesdays, there's more ways to get involved in sharing our voices, because they're planning to put a pipeline in folks' community that's members of this church. They're going to put pipelines through near their homes and their school-age children's homes. So that's being planned for Wednesday to show up at the Capitol as well, to let our voices be heard. Who here likes to show up? Is this the church that shows up? So they're needing our voices now more than ever. So please do plan to join if you can. Again, good morning. Good morning. And welcome. We are glad you are here. Today's prayer is going to be a little bit different in that it's one that's selected by Heather, and it's gifted us by our credentialed religious educator by the name of Teresa Honey Youngblood, titled Love That Is All, this morning's prayer. Love that is all and everything. Help us to make room in our own aching hearts for grace, for the willingness to offer gifts to each other, such as undeserved kindness, unexpected forgiveness, and unconditional presence. These acts of love are what keeps us on the path. They are us making the path towards our salvation, our mutual liberation, is defined by acts of love and grace we give and accept in return. Blessed be, Ashe, Shalom, Salam, may it be so, and Amen. The sharing of stones ritual here at the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge is a time in our service where we take pause to come forth to share stones as we honor the joys and sorrows of our lives with this community. Visitors are always welcome to take part in this ritual. Those who gather are also invited to sign cards for members of the congregation at our congregational care team table that's also in our reception area. On Sunday, May 11th, we will be welcoming as many as 8 of our youth leaders who are graduating from high school into early adulthood. With this, we have 8 hymnals. Get your pens ready and watch out for the wart to get on from signing so many things. But there'll be 8 hymnals out in our signing receptional area, again for that May 11th service. Today, we have one Thinking of You card to sign. That card is for Penny Nichols' daughter, Saraya Elm's partner, Jarvie Snyder, who recently suffered a bad accident that will require some time for him to heal. Let's hold them in our hearts and minds, and please do sign that card for them before you leave. Those who would like to take part in this ritual, please come forth, lining up on the east or west wall of the sanctuary or the center aisle if that works better for you. Online, share your stones in the chat box. Our sharing of stone ritual begins. Let us say together our chalice lighting words. With hope to make this a better world, we light this flame. Its light is a symbol of the power of love.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, through every land, by every tongue.
Excerpts from Luke chapter 1, verse 26 through 38. The angel Gabriel was sent from God to a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David. And the virgin's name was Mary. And he came to her and he said, "Hail, O favored one, the Lord is with you." But she was greatly troubled at the saying, and considered in her mind what sort of greeting this might be. And the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And behold, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus. And Mary said to the angel, How shall this be, since I have no husband? And the angel said to her, The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. Therefore, the child to be born will be called Holy, the Son of God. For with God, nothing will be impossible. And Mary said, Behold, I am the handmaid of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word. And the angel departed from her.
Good morning. So many of you know that a preacher pack assignment is to pick a Bible verse that you have struggled with. So that's why you just heard a reading that we usually hear at Christmas, a week after Easter. But if you do the math and you count back, it might be timely for a conception story. That being said, I'm not going to be speaking so much about the conception so much as Mary's reaction to it. According to the Gospel of Luke, Mary was troubled by the message the angel Gabriel gave to her. But after the angel reassured her, she said, Let it be to me according to your word. I have read interpretations of this story, and these words indicating Mary gave her consent to become pregnant by the Holy Ghost and give birth to Jesus. But did she really? My work for nearly the last 25 years has primarily focused on information privacy in healthcare. Concepts around the notion of consent have been key points of discussion throughout my privacy career. Consent is defined as giving permission for something to happen or to agree to do something. In my work, consent is generally discussed in terms of the collection, use, or disclosure of personal data and how much control we as individuals actually have over the use of our information. Spoiler alert. In this country and digital age, we have very little control over our information and few opportunities to truly provide consent. And unfortunately, maybe even scarily, more so with what's been happening in our federal government the last several months. Consent is a difficult concept in the realm of information privacy. You wouldn't think so. How hard is it to ask someone if it's okay to collect and use their information? But data is money in commerce, and we often don't have full transparency of what is happening with our personal information. We don't really know what we are agreeing to when we choose to provide our information in order to use a service or buy a product. How many of us actually take the time to read the privacy policies or terms of conditions in the apps, portals, or websites we use? We often just see them as links at the bottom of the page. We figure that they must be there for a reason, and it's probably good that company has one. But few of us ever read them. And if you ever have, did you really understand what that company behind that website, app, or portal was going to do with your information by the time you finished reading it? Some people may give them a cursory look, but most of us just agree to the terms and conditions, if even asked, and go ahead and use the online service or that connected device. Companies may argue that you provided consent since you willingly gave them your information, even if the consent was implied rather than explicit. But is this really consent if we truly didn't have it, or in practicality didn't have a choice? Years ago, one of my children needed tubes inserted to address repeated ear infections. At our first visit to the ENT office, I refused to provide my Social Security number on the paperwork. I was called back into an office to discuss my refusal and was told they would not be able to provide the surgery if I didn't give it to them. Thankfully, I had the experience and knowledge to be able to challenge them on it. They did not need my Social Security number to file a claim with my insurance company, even though they insisted they did. Eventually, the office staff agreed to let us see the doctor without me giving it to them. I was grateful, as the doctor came highly recommended, and I did not want to have to search for another, but I was also put out by the staff over the confrontation and frustrated that it had even been an issue. I needed the doctor's services for my daughter, and consented to provide personal information to them so they would be comfortable they would be paid for their services. I understood the need for the transaction and that I needed to provide some information, primarily my health insurance information. But had they absolutely insisted on obtaining my Social Security number, I'm not sure if I would have given it to them or walked away. Would it really have been a choice if in practicality it was my child's health at stake? So circling back to Mary, her response, "Let it be to me according to your word." Did she give her consent or just acknowledge the situation she was put into?
This church each month, with humility and gratitude, shares one half of its undesignated offerings with a local organization that extends our mission and vision into the community. This month, our collected offering has been shared with the Louisiana Bucket Brigade. As we now know, the Louisiana Bucket Brigade is a strong, action-driven ally to Louisiana communities most impacted by pollution. Since 2000, they have worked with towns and neighborhoods next to the state's oil refineries, gas export terminals, and chemical plants. They partner with these fence-line communities to amplify their voices, help residents challenge the petrochemical industry, and to build a different economy. As it is our last Sunday of collections for the month of April, please give as generously as you can. Visitors, please feel no obligation to give. We at this church are building on our financial giving as a spiritual practice. This morning's offering will be humbly accepted and shared in the same spirit. Please, again, give as generously as you can. Will the ushers please come forward?
To Be Resilient, an excerpt by Tim Adkins. Water can do incredible things, incredibly beautiful things, and incredibly destructive things. Running water can be the strongest force in our natural world, breaking down rocks, digging out Grand Canyons, swallowing an entire island. It's this strength that helps water erode the walls of the river, eventually forming the oxbow. We often think that strength and flexibility are opposing sides of the same coin. But when they are united with resiliency, you can literally move the earth. Resiliency united with strength and flexibility creates beauty in the world and creates new spaces for life to flourish. In this time in our life, at this time in our history, I need this kind of oxbow resiliency more than ever.
Some Christians are taught that Mary's faith, courage, and obedience to God are to be praised, and they should follow her example to be humble and receptive to God's will. My interpretation of the veneration of her humble consent is that it is a message or a lesson to willingly accept what comes our way as God's will. Moreover, to me, what she says to the angel Gabriel in the story, "Let it be to me according to your word," is Mary acknowledging what is going to happen and accepting that she did not really have a choice in the matter. So back to my world of privacy. Some U.S. states and some other countries have comprehensive privacy laws and regulations that require a consent to be obtained before collecting or using an individual's information. For example, I have an Apple iPhone. When downloading a new app, I'm asked if I want to ask that app not to track me. I always say no, but I'm well aware that the companies providing that app are still collecting information about me, my device, and how I use that app. They might just not serve me up individualized ads. Some jurisdictions require user consent regarding the cookies a website may use to track your activity on that site and other sites you may click on. Without getting too deep into the technology, a cookie is just a small file that that website or web server passes to your web browser and stores it on your computer when you visit that website. If it's a site you use often, you may want it to remember you, and it may be to your benefit for it to collect information about you. For others, you may not want that. You may only choose to have essential cookies to be run. One dilemma of this type of consent in the world of information privacy is that it puts the onus on us as individuals to do the work to protect our information. But this really only gives us the illusion of control. One study determined it would take 47 hours to read the privacy policies for the average number of websites a person in the United States visits in a month. So essentially 1 week per month devoted to trying to understand how to control your information privacy. Nobody has that time or energy. So during my experience with the ENT's office, I was able to exert some control over the collection and use of my information. Because I work in the healthcare industry, I knew there was only one reason the business office wanted my Social Security number, and that was so they could use it for collections if I didn't pay my bill. I let them know I understood that was their reason for wanting the information, and told them I was willing to wait to see the doctor until they figured out what I would owe after they estimated what my health insurance would pay. I'd write them a check, they could wait for the check to pass or clear, and then we could see the doctor. I don't know why the business manager changed her mind. She may have just decided it wasn't worth her time to continue to press me, or didn't want to have to explain to the doctor losing a patient, but I was able to have some control of my information in that situation. So I've been talking about just one aspect of our lives, our information privacy, particularly in the digital age, and how difficult it is, if not truly impossible, to have control. As Mary's voice has either been silenced or just not included in the Bible, we can only speculate on what her reactions may have been and how she handled all of the things in her life over which she had no control. What do we do with the enormity of things that are beyond our control but impact us, whether directly or indirectly? How do we find both sides of the coin, as suggested in the reading, finding the strength and flexibility to be resilient? Please remain seated for the next hymn.
Blessed Spirit of my life, give me strength through stress and strife. Help me live with dignity. Let me know serenity. Fill me with vision. Clear my mind of fear and confusion. When my thoughts flow restlessly, let peace find a home in me. Spirit of great mystery, place in me. Help me live my wordless creed. Let me know so of need. Fill me with compassion. Be the source of my intuition. Then when life is done for me, let me light my legacy.
By Reverend Julia Hamilton. We need one another, or inspired by We Need One Another by George Odell. A community well. Spirit of life, we need each other. We need one another to sit together in the dark when the electricity is out and the wind is howling. We need one another to wade through the water with nothing but an old canoe and the will to save as many lives as possible. We need one another to help tear down our moldy, rotten walls and begin to put up new ones in the house that our grandfather built. We need one another when the sky clears, and yet we are still so filled with stories that if we don't tell them to someone else, we might hurt ourselves. We need one another to make us laugh on the first good day in a long while. And we need one another so that when our little spring of hope dries up, there is a community well from which we can drink that will keep us going until the thirst is over. The worst part is past and able to survive even when the rain comes again.
So the profession of information privacy has not yet been able to deal with the dilemma of consent. There are good ideas, but the scale of implementation is really beyond the profession's control. I haven't been able to resolve the issue of consent on a personal level either. There have been times when I've deleted an app after taking the time to read their privacy policy and learning what it would collect about me and what the company would do with that information. The very, very professional term for this is called the ick factor. Simply put, when the data collection or usage gets to a point that it makes somebody feel icky. I might try an alternative service that I believe is a better custodian of my information, or just forgo using the service. There are other times that I am willing to give up my information privacy to get the service I want to receive. It has long frustrated me that I cannot trust others to do what is in my and others' best interest regarding personal data. Just like it frustrates me to have things happen in my life that I do not consent to or have no control over. So back to Mary. She is praised for trusting God's word and guidance. She is also turned to as an example of faith in times of uncertainty. Marianology, or scholars of Mary, tell us she had courage in the face of hardship and an understanding of the challenges ahead of her. While I cannot understand the unwavering acceptance of someone else's will, I do appreciate the faith she had during times of uncertainty. She may have had faith in her God, whereas those of us who do not necessarily believe in that God may have faith in other things during times of uncertainty in our lives. So when I was a kid, maybe 10 years old or so, I remember watching a movie on TV and commenting that I wasn't sure I would be able to handle whatever was happening to the characters when I grew up. The story in the movie was about a family with a special needs child. I hadn't had any experience with a special needs classmate or an acquaintance at that point in my life. I remember my mom telling me something to the sort that either we are given or we will be able to find the strength to handle what comes our way. I don't remember her exact words. She may even have specifically said, God will give you the strength you need. But the sentiment that I would find the needed strength always stayed with me. I chose to believe her. And incidentally, on a side note, she is one of the strongest people I know. So while for a time I'm pretty sure I interpreted that message as I'd be strong enough to handle those things on my own, as an adult, I recognize that there's also strength in reaching out to others when help is needed. So moving away from my work world and information privacy into something more personal, the year 2021. Not the best year I've ever had. In January, just as older adults were being scheduled to receive the first COVID vaccinations after healthcare workers and other essential workers had received theirs, my mom, my husband Ross, and I all caught the virus. Mom actually got the call to schedule her vaccination appointment just days after being diagnosed with COVID. It was definitely bad timing. It was a very scary time for me, largely due to the uncertainty and fear of what this unpredictable virus may do to us. But we all made it through. Then in February, Baton Rouge had an ice storm. I sat working in my home office while listening to limbs drop on our roof. Thankfully, no damage to the house, but we did have the inconvenience of a week without electricity, with the average temperature in the house being about 45 degrees. But the worst part for me was there was no hope for many of the plants in my flower garden to survive. So within weeks, after the most likely last chance for a freeze, I cleaned up the dead stuff in the garden and replanted. Things were looking up, but before the month of March ended, our neighbor's tree crashed to the ground. It knocked down a section of fence, it smashed a corner of the screened-in back porch, and punched a hole in our roof. But worse yet for me, the main part of the tree trunk landed squarely on that garden I had just replanted. And what the tree didn't crush, the workers cutting apart and removing it did. So April, as far as I remember, was calamity-free. I saved what I could in the garden and yet again replanted. But then in May, our house flooded. Not to the degree many people experienced in 2016, but enough that major repairs and some renovation was needed. The flooding started at about 10 or 11 at night and thankfully receded several hours later. The next morning, I was outside checking in with my neighbor to see how much damage they had. Incidentally, this was the neighbor who lost the tree and some of her garden too. I told her the flood was my third strike for the year garden-wise, and I was not going to tempt fate with another replanting if things died due to the flood. And I wouldn't have had time anyway, as Ross and I decided we would do many of the flood repairs ourselves. I've always been good at the demolition part of remodeling and at painting walls, but now I know how to hang drywall too. However, the amount of work was too much for two individuals to handle, especially with working our day jobs. So the day after we flooded, we began to reach out to others in our various communities for help. I reached out to coworkers and church members who had been through the devastating floods of 2016, asking for advice, names of contractors in case we needed one, really any tips they had or stuff we should know that we weren't thinking of. We let friends, family, coworkers know what had happened, and even without asking for any specific help, people stepped in to cover meetings or commitments that we couldn't make. Fans and dehumidifiers and storage bins were lent to us. People whose houses we helped muck out in 2016 returned the favor or arranged for food and water to be delivered to feed us and our helpers. The kids and their friends helped move furniture into storage, bring loads of wet drywall and flooring to the roadside, and scrape linoleum glue off floors. A friend of mine and her husband spent a day helping us hang drywall. These are just a few of the many things our various communities did to help us respond to the flood, to be resilient and make it through that year. We couldn't control the COVID virus, the falling temperatures or trees, or the overflowing storm drains and water that came into our house, and I certainly didn't consent to having any of those things happen. They were all events causing different amounts of uncertainty, but what I did have was the resilience that was supported by my communities. Circling back to Mary, and what I imagine her response might have been given to the lack of control she had over events, snippets we do have about her life from the Bible show that she also had community. Soon after being visited by the angel Gabriel, the Bible tells us Mary went to spend time with her cousin Elizabeth. I imagine Elizabeth provided support to Mary as she came to grips with having been visited by an angel, being told her life was to be upended, and not knowing what her future would hold. We're also told that during Jesus' crucifixion, near the cross of Jesus stood his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. Another Bible verse tells us that after Jesus' death and resurrection, the apostles gathered frequently to pray as a group, together with the women and with Mary, the mother of Jesus, and with his brothers. So certainly Mary had community, and I firmly believe it was her communities that helped her through all she endured. While some Christians turn to Mary to intercede on their behalf when they are suffering because they believe she understands their sorrows, I believe we can rely on our communities, whether they be family or built communities, to find the strength and resilience we need to handle things that happen to us that are beyond our control. So just like it's not really possible to consent to the use of my information, nor to control the weather or rising waters, or many of the things in the world that are currently happening, I can have faith in my communities to be resilient, to be strong and flexible, and help me through what may come my way. So please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn.
I'm gonna lift my sister up, she is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sister up, she is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sister up, she is not heavy. If I don't lift her up, if I don't lift her up, if I don't lift her up, I will fall down. I'm gonna lift my neighbor up, he is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my neighbor up, they are not heavy. I'm gonna lift my neighbor up, they are not heavy. If I don't lift them up, if I don't lift them up, if I don't lift them up, I will fall down. I'm gonna lift my brother up, he is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my brother up, he is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my brother up, he is not heavy. If I don't lift him up, if I don't lift him up, if I don't lift him up, he will fall down. I'm gonna lift my people up, they are not heavy. I'm gonna lift my people up, they are not heavy. I'm gonna lift my people up, they are not heavy. If I don't lift them up, if I don't lift them up, if I don't lift them up, I will fall down.
May we all have oxbow strength, carving through mountains, determined to change. May we all have oxbow flexibility, bending around the curves, overcoming all obstacles. May we all have oxbow faith moving forward. Blessed be.